listening to Planet Vero Radio. I am Cindy Schwartz, and this is the Patient Partners Show. We are broadcast on iHeartMedia and also podcast on Spreaker. I've got Jeannie Roller with me. She's my co-host. She's on Skype on live stream from Indiana. Today we're talking about anesthesia, the anesthesia drugs, and we're going to talk about this for a couple of podcasts because it's just so interesting how powerful these drugs are. And I know in the media now it's all about fentanyl and some other things. Fentanyl is one of the drugs also that they have, and I want to say the anesthesia cocktail, my words, not a medical term, but that we all seem to imbibe in or have to imbibe in when we have certain surgeries and they're going to give us general anesthesia. So I found this article that is from June 29th, so very, very recent, and it is on... let me see if I can find it here, shuffling my papers. It's called Under Anesthesia, Where Do Our Minds Go? To better understand our brains and design safer anesthesia, scientists are turning to EEG, which are the electroencephalogram procedures that they do on your brain to measure the brain waves. That's about as technical as I can possibly get, not being in the medical field. The article is written by Jackie. If I pronounce the last name correctly, it's Rocheleau. And like I said, it's from June 29th, 2020. You can Google all of that. It is on naudal.us. So look it up if you're interested in this. And I just want to highlight a couple of things because I know the time always goes so quick, and Jeannie's got to pipe in with a few things that she wants to say too. But the essence of it, it says... length of surgeries it deals with, and for adults over 65, the most common surgical complication is post-operative delirium, which manifests as inattention and either disorganized thought or altered levels of consciousness. Delirium can last from a few hours to several months and may be an independent risk factor for long-term cognitive decline. So that's what this article is talking about. And it says that in the medical field, general anesthesia redefines surgery and medicine, but over a century later, it still carries significant risks, which we talk about all the time on this. And you really, for a lot of instances, as the patient, Jeannie, don't have a say in what kind of anesthesia that you can have. I know we've had doctors on this podcast that have said, anesthesiologists that have said they can block certain nerve patterns, organizations, whatever parts in the body for certain surgeries, but not every one of them. So that would revert back to your general anesthesia, using general anesthesia. But this article gets into more of the things on how that it should be measured all along for each individual patient, and that these high-powered drugs are doing cognitive damage to people when they have these drugs in their system. And it also goes on to say that depending on the complexity and length of surgery, between 17 and 43% of patients may have cognitive problems, typically in memory and executive functions. And that these typically last only 1 to 2 weeks after surgery, but few rigorous studies, so they've gotten more involved with some of this, thank goodness, have examined changes in cognitive function in the general population beyond 6 months after surgery. So, I mean, a long time after. And I'm here to say that it can, my personal opinion and personal effects, that it can last longer than 6 months. So, Jeannie Rilla, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have a couple, starting with, the morning of the procedure is generally when you meet your anesthesiologist, right?
Right. Or if then.
And usually by that time, you have already been given that little something to help you relax. A lot of times you have the IV in your hand or your arm, wherever they put it, and you've already given that little something. Now, a lot of times, this is when you're supposed to have the informed consent talk for the anesthesiologist. But a lot of times, you are pre-drugged. You just nod your head. And they really don't go into a lot of details about the side effects, even the short-term side effects of nausea, vomiting, sore throat, post-operative delirium, muscle aches, itching, chills, and shivering. And I have known a couple people who have had their throats permanently injured by being given the general, because when they put the tube down, some people they damage their throat, their vocal cords. They can also break your teeth. There's a lot of things that they don't really speak about. As far as the long-term side effects, I don't think anyone's ever told that it could last a lifetime, that the older you are and the more sick that you are, the more chance that you have to be permanently impaired cognitively for the rest of your life.
I totally agree. And I want to also make a key point in it. And it says these pioneers, so they're talking about the doctors that are delving into this, these pioneers aim to learn how to more safely anesthetize their patients, tailoring the dose, and this is, to me, is absolutely key, tailoring the dose to individual patients and adjusting during surgery. So that's what the key of this article is, that you would, as the patient during the surgery, have the EEG nodes on your brain, which is not taught, it says in this article, is not taught in medical school, and basically really doesn't have any current basis in any surgeries that they perform now, for the anesthesiologist to watch your individual brain waves and see what is actually happening to you as the person. Because now, right across the board, it's like a benchmark of different things. If your body mass index is this is what we're going to go give you. You know, that, I think I'm saying that correctly, that's what their key is on how they decide what you're going to have for your anesthesia. So you bring up some good points, too, which you've talked about also, that you really aren't told this stuff. I mean, maybe a quick side glance they'll tell you, or say it out of the side of their mouth was my experience with it. And you really like, what did they just say? And you're already pre-medicated with, whatever drug they're going to give you. And now you're into the thick of it with the anesthesia. So I just find it amazing that people are now looking into this, because it says monitoring patients' brainwaves still isn't something the medical boards require or that medical schools train anesthesiologists to do in the operating room. So, I mean, I'm with you, Jeannie, and I'm with reading this article, which is why we're going to do some more podcasts on this subject, because it's just incredible. And it also goes on to show that it is lasting more than a half an hour, that's what I was told. An hour, it'll wear off. No, it doesn't.
Well, how a general works is that they bind and incapacitate several portions or proteins on the surface of neurons in your brain that are essential for regulating sleep, attention, learning, and memory. So if they can disrupt them temporarily, does it not make sense that they could disrupt them permanently?
You mean the drugs?
And the other, the drugs. And, well, once they've been disrupted, couldn't they stay that way? I mean, that is the thing.
Right.
It can, and they know it can. And not only do they need to give these drugs by body weight, but they also have to know your age, because the older you are, the less amount you should be getting. And the sicker you are, the less you should be getting, because they have found out that the older you are, the sicker you are, the more these drugs affect your brain.
So just to give the opposite side of it, it does say in this, not everyone is convinced that the EEG monitoring will make a difference. Excuse me. It's possible that the conditions, like you're talking, the conditions necessitating surgery and inflammation from surgery's toll on the body could also share responsibility for any long-term effects on cognition. Okay, so that's the other side to it. But I mean, in my opinion, let's look into this more. If your own anesthesiologists are not monitoring what's actually happening in your brain during the surgery with these high-powered drugs in your body, because they are high-powered drugs. I think we can all say that. So I want to say to the listeners, thank you for listening to Patient Partners. And please stay tuned to Planet Vero Radio.